It is Stacey with NutritionJobs and Dietitian Career Success. I'm very excited to have an amazing guest on today who's going to talk to us a lot about a very unique niche that she's created, that she's worked in. She has a lot of expertise in that area and personal experience. And one of the main reasons I brought her on is to share with you all like how to build out your business and the power of your own brand. So welcome, Taylor Lechner. Hey, Taylor.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing great.
I want to tell everybody how we met. We met through LinkedIn, and I like to make sure everyone knows this because sometimes when you're networking over on LinkedIn, it's kind of quiet. You're doing it in isolation, but really, this is where a lot of major collaborations and networking, powerful networking, impactful networking, networking with an outcome can happen. So don't be discouraged by all the work that you're doing on LinkedIn. Amazing things can happen. And my relationship with Taylor is a great example of that. So Taylor, can you share with everybody a little bit about your background, like how you got involved in your niche and a little bit about your background as a dietitian and what you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm a registered dietitian, like Stacey said, and I am the founder of my private practice, Nourished by Taylor. And in that practice, I specialize in helping women safely transition off of birth control and avoid post-birth control syndrome. So, thinking painful or missing periods, acne, PMS, mood swings, all of that kind of stuff. And that really came out of my own personal journey, being started on birth control when I was 18 years old for a missing period, and no deeper questions were asked, no digging was done. I was just immediately slapped a prescription for the birth control pill and didn't know any better. So, really, what was going on was I was struggling with an undiagnosed eating disorder, and no one really knew that because eating disorders are very secretive. And even at that point, I thought I was just being healthy. So I went about 10 years being on birth control, thinking that it was giving me a period when it really wasn't, because you're not ovulating on birth control. So I thankfully was able to heal my relationship with food and exercise, and actually started my career as a dietitian working with eating disorders because I was really passionate about helping other women not have to go through that same experience that I did. And I saw that was so prevalent with a lot of women my age. So I did that for about 10 years of my career, a little under 10, I guess, like 8. And then that's when I learned the truth about birth control. And I was like, heck, I want to get off of this. So I stopped cold turkey. And for the next 4 years, struggled really bad with irregular cycles, really bad anxiety, and embarrassing and painful acne. And whenever I would go to the dermatologist or my doctor, basically their only answer was like, well, that's normal, come back in a few months, or go back on the pill. And I knew that wasn't actually solving the problem and it was making things worse. It was adding fuel to the fire. And I just felt so unsupported and unheard. So that's when I started digging deep into the research, and I learned more about functional nutrition. And that's what opened my eyes to root cause healing versus conventional dietetics. It's very much like disease mitigation once someone has a disease, and was able to heal my own hormones, my own period, and my own acne that I'd struggled with on my own. And that's when I decided I was like, this is such a need for other women, that I left the field of eating disorders and opened my private practice. So I've been in business a little over a year working with women specifically in this niche. And that's how I got here.
So Taylor, I think there's a lot that you said that I wanted to hit on, and I think as dietitians we can have expertise in a lot of different areas, didactic and academic expertise, which is helpful because not all of us have like end stage renal disease or have just had open heart surgery, or for us to be able to deliver the medical nutrition therapy. But I think you hit on something really important. A lot of women do suffer from irregular periods, no periods, or too many periods, or having issues with menopause, for example, or perimenopause. Like it's a a major factor in someone's health and well-being, and nutrition obviously can play a major role in that. But having this niche that you've discovered where you can actually be empathetic and can have some sort of shared experience, whether or not it's even shared in the actual session with somebody. I think having that shared experience really gives you some unique perspective and expertise in this area. So I think that's really, really helpful for other dietitians to hear as well. Like that, going into this field, I love the evolution of how you chose this as your niche. So then one-on-one nutrition counseling, and are you doing in person or telehealth, or how does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm doing completely virtual.
That's awesome. Okay. So tell us a little bit then about your business. And I bring this up because Taylor had just created this beautiful new website and she announced it on LinkedIn. And I went over, and I like to see what people are doing for their careers. I went over to her website. I'm like, holy smokes, like this is fantastic. You just started with a lot of your marketing and outreach. And I just really wanted to applaud you for that. And also for you to be able to share with other dietitians sort of your process of how you built out your brand. But so tell us a little bit about how it is that you're finding your clients. How are you finding your people to have your business in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah, so I will say that's still a work in progress. I think so. Backing up, when I first left my full-time job and transitioned fully, I had been building my private practice for a while, but then I made the full leap to quit my full-time job and go into private practice last January, like I said. So I decided to invest in business coaching, which is one of the best decisions that I personally made, because you and I were just talking about this before we hopped on, there's so many hats that you're wearing as a business owner. And unless you minored in business or marketing or you know the ins and outs of that, it's just a completely different world that I didn't know anything about. And so I knew at that point that that was something I wanted to invest in, because it is, money that you have to put towards your business. And I have no doubt that if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have made as much money that I did my first year of business. I think I would have been wasting so much time and money and not gotten my return back. And so I'm really glad that I made that decision. That being said, the person who I did business coaching with, he was really heavy about social media, specifically Instagram. And I think that definitely taught me some really good, valuable skills of how to market yourself on social media and how to, really showcase your client results and not just share educational material all the time, because that really will bring in like the freebie seekers. Like you want people who are going to pay for your services and going to work with you one-on-one, because those are the people that are going to be getting the biggest results from you and probably the clients you want to be working with. So that was really helpful. And I had been doing that for a period of time and I just wasn't seeing the return. Like I was putting so much effort into it and I didn't feel like I was getting my return back. So I just recently, I will say, kind of shifted gears a little bit into, I tried also just like repurposing different. So what I would post on Instagram, I would like repurpose to TikTok and I would repurpose to Pinterest and YouTube and stuff like that. So that way you're not putting more work in, but it's the same content and you are just sharing it across different platforms, because you never know who you're going to reach or who's going to know someone. And then I will say, like, networking in your community is really, really important. That is something I did from the get-go, just because I like doing presentations. I like being on podcasts and doing interviews like this. I'm someone who actually really likes to present. So, I reached out to fitness studios in my area, because you always want to be thinking, where is your ideal client hanging out? And for me, working with women, I'm like, where are my women at who really value their health? They value a natural approach. They're starting to maybe question conventional medicine a little bit, and they have been kind of failed by that. So where are those people who are going to be my women? So thinking about that really helped guide me of like reaching out to fitness studios and yoga studios and all that kind of stuff, doing events. And that was really helpful to build connections. Because again, even if it's not your ideal client, like I remember I did one presentation and it was older women, but at the same time, that's one thing, fertility and menopause are, it's hormones, but those are specialties that I refer out for just because they are so niche. So that those were women I could give like general hormone guidance to. And at the same time, like they had a lot of like daughters or granddaughters who maybe could benefit. So I will say like in network, like get outside of your house, get outside of your apps and just like go talk to people is so important. Like, especially even today, I think we're like that truly makes a big difference. Um,
That's helpful. Yeah.
yeah. And then the last thing I would say is I just launched a podcast. So that's the other thing in addition to my website. So those are things that I'm doing to get the word out there because it is such a need and it is hard as a small business, like growing that from the get-go.
I think you mentioned a few things that I think are sort of enlightening for dietitians who are thinking about how to build out their business. In working with both podcasting and also in social media, I think one advantage of that is that your ideal client can connect with you. You wouldn't recognize each other on the street necessarily, but they can connect with you, your voice, your what it feels like to work with you. And also I think with social media in general, I agree, like sometimes you can put a lot of information out there and you're not always sure like what the return is on that. But it also gives you an idea of what your client base is looking for. You can understand like maybe questions that they have or themes that they're all looking for, or if you do provide some freebie things like you mentioned, that you can see like which ones are more popular. I know like with my own business, goal planning and career planning is very popular, which I would not think. I would think like the cover letter formula would be like more popular. I would want that more than career planning, but that's what my audience wants, and that's what I'm learning from them. So I would imagine that being able to reach out to your audience and let them hear from you and let them see you on social media or just hear your voice on podcasting can be a really great way, like you said, to network, to reach your clients. And I love the idea what you said too, to sort of recapping what you said, the networking. Like think of additional ways of networking, and like sort of jumping where you think that maybe that's not your niche, like jumping over a little bit or a little bit of a tangent outside of your own very specific niche, and see what opportunity can come from there, and just that word of mouth. And again, just it's all part of that brand. It's all part of sharing what it is that you do, how you can be of service, and finding your people. So I love all that you shared. So Taylor, you've got your beautiful website. It has a lovely blog. You've got your social media content, which is lovely. I'm imagining you have a newsletter for email addresses that you're collecting, and of course your people and your testimonials, but you've also got a podcast. Like you've done all these things in a very short amount of time. And I think they look perfect. They look amazing. What's been the easiest thing to do for marketing and getting your brand out there? What's been maybe the hardest? Maybe share both ends of the spectrum for our other fellow dietitians.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it's just been like such an evolution. Like it's just like when you say it all like that, I'm like, wow, that is a lot. But I think over the time, it's just with entrepreneurship, you just have to constantly, and this is, going back to what we said in the beginning, where it's like you just have to really, I'm very grateful that I've always loved my job as a dietitian because I was very purposeful in choosing something not just for the money, but because I really loved it. And I think that's so, so important because I personally don't think you can be an entrepreneur in a job that you hate because you do have to put so much literally blood, sweat, and tears into it. So, all that being said, this past year has been a whirlwind of just like so many high highs and low lows and just figuring it out. And that's where I think investing in business coaching is really helpful. Mine had a community too. And so I connected with a few other women who are in the same journey with me. And that's been, I mean, we talk almost every single day. Like we don't live in the same state. We voice memo each other, text each other. Like when a situation happens, whether it's good or bad, we can just kind of lean on each other and chat through it. But anyways, like going back to your question, I would say that really the hardest thing I think really was figuring out where to spend my time. And I think that's something I'm still figuring out and why I launched the podcast because I was initially spending so much time on social media because that's where my business mentor recommended. That's what was helpful for her. But my cohort of business coaching was actually one of the first cohorts that we really didn't see the traction that her other cohorts had seen on Instagram. So a lot of us were doing all the things and we weren't seeing that return. And I do think it's because social media is changing and people aren't necessarily going on there for information. They might be going on there to disconnect, or more and more people are getting away from social media. So, um, I think that was a big thing for me, is figuring out, okay, well, I'm putting so much time in. Like, do I keep pushing along because everyone keeps saying it's just going to take time and it just takes consistency, which I'm not a fair weather person who's just going to jump from thing to thing. Like, I will put in the time and effort to like see if it works. And 6 months, 8 months, I'm like, okay, I feel like this still isn't working for the amount of time and energy I'm putting into it. So that's when I started really shifting gears and focusing on, I had been a guest on a lot of podcasts and I really liked doing that. And so the thing holding me back, though, I was nervous to it's easy just talking to somebody like this is super easy. I could do this all day. Um, but I was like, it would just be me for the most part. I'd have guests on, but it would just be me talking about things and that scared me. So that was the barrier to starting a podcast for a while. But then finally, I was like, I think this is just my next best option, because I was seeing traction with people finding me on guest podcasts and loving what I said, really connecting, really resonated. And I also, and I'm sure everyone listening can relate, if you're in a niche, like you get the same questions over and over again. And so you're kind of explaining the same thing over and over again, which is fine. And you can really hit a large stream of people to resonate with something and get that word out there even more if you have a platform like a podcast. So that really helped me. And my podcast is a little over a month now. So it's still in the baby stages, but that's kind of been some of the highs and lows of the marketing journey in terms of like where to spend your time, where to spend your money, because time is money also. And I think that's something you have to consider. And also, like, what do you like to do? I like podcasting. I don't necessarily like TikTok. Like TikTok is the first. I can do Instagram, but TikTok, Threads, like those are things I'm just like, I think I'm at that phase now. I'm 33 and I'm like, that's the first app that I just don't like and don't care to learn. But a lot of people are on it. So,
Yeah, I think you hit on something really interesting as a dietitian entrepreneur, or even if you're in a traditional position and you're trying to have some creativity within that position, is evolving, like being sort of keeping your antennas up and thinking about, how am I being of service and how am I making money? How am I not spending too much time in the details or in a fixed process of marketing? Like you said, social media has really changed and engagement has changed. Behavior of our potential clients have changed, and finding ways to reach them, and always sort of though being open to, well, oh, what's the next thing that I can venture into or spend my time with a better return on the time that I'm actually spending in there, and getting more clients and being able to spread the news. So it's not just about business, obviously, it's being of service to people who need that expertise. So I thank you for sharing all that. And I think you and I were also saying that outsourcing those different aspects of running a business, right? So when you have your own business and you're delivering medical nutrition therapy somehow, that's only a fraction of how you're going to be spending your day. The other part, or a big chunk of it could be 30%, 50% of your time, is actually running a business. So I think learning how to know what to outsource, what's important to outsource. It's, everyone kind of wants to bootstrap in the beginning because it seems like the most efficient use of your money and your time. But there are some trade-offs for that. So the other thing I wanted to bring up on something that you hit on before as well, in all of my correspondence with you, I always felt like I left the conversation with a smile. You have so much enthusiasm for the work that you do, and you're so excited about this niche. You're so excited about your clients and about all the marketing and branding that you're doing. And I think that really makes a difference. So my question for you then was, can you tell us a little bit about your skills, that maybe the skills that you were born with and skills that you've been developing along the way? And I'm just going to add in a skill for you. Like this enthusiasm, this passion is really fun to work with. So tell us about the skills that you were born with and those that you've developed over time.
yeah. Oh, well, first of all, thank you. That makes me feel good. I think the skills that I was born with, definitely like hardworking, motivated. I'm someone who, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I have a very good gut instinct. So I think that my business sense, like I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like I always knew, and I always wanted to be a leader as
Mm.
well. So my previous job, I went up the ranks from like dietitian to lead dietitian to clinical nutrition manager before I made the switch to private practice. And I feel like I am, like, I love talking with people. I love connecting with people. And I always feel like I'm very genuine with things. So it's not just having a conversation with them, hoping that I sign a client. It's very much like having a conversation because I really like cool if they want to become a client, that'd be great if we're a good fit. And I genuinely like want to know how I can help people better and like serve people because like that's what my business is all about. Um, I think things I had to learn along the way were navigating like I think a lot of like money mindset. Actually, yeah, that's where I'm going to start, money mindset, because I think especially as dietitians, it's very, I think we all just get into this space and I go in Facebook groups and stuff with dietitians and everyone's just complaining about how we make so little money and how we have to pay so much for school. And it honestly makes like I get it. I've been there. And at the same time, it makes me a little bit angry that people are almost in this like victim mindset. And I want to empower people of like a lot of that's our own stuff. And I know it depends, like everyone has their own experience and stuff like that. But I think there's a lot of room to navigate having difficult conversations with people about pay raises and to, not everyone is meant to be their own business owner. And I think that there's spaces where there is room to make more money. And also, I think we also have to kind of look at what are the other avenues of our work. Like I said, I never did a job for just the money. My first job, I made hardly any, and I'm like not near my financial goals right now as a new business owner, but I'm working there, but I'm so passionate about it. And that makes a huge difference when you actually love your job. So I think that's another thing to like really check in. But I had to do a lot of work around money mindset because what I was charging based on what I learned in like this field and business coaching and stuff like that was very different than what I was earning before, but also more aligned with like the time I was putting in. So with my practice, I'm not just having one-on-one sessions with clients. I'm looking at functional labs. I'm ordering labs. I'm adjusting protocols. I'm giving personalized care and chat messaging people in between sessions whenever something comes up. So I had to really look at holistically how I'm charging people. And I also don't accept insurance, which was something that was challenging for me and scary for me to get away from, but just everything I was doing, insurance didn't cover it. So I wouldn't get paid the amount of time and effort I was putting into it. And that was really important. And I think with any job, again, you have to think about like not just financial, but you have to think about your time and also your sanity. So having
Hmm.
a balanced nervous system is very important to me. So I had to learn a lot of money mindset of like, I'm literally changing people's lives. As dietitians, we're changing people's lives and we deserve to be compensated appropriately for that. Um, and then I also had to learn how to not take things personally and to be ghosted by people on social media. Someone might reach out to you and be like super interested and like saying all the right things. And then all of a sudden, like they ghost you. And it's really hard for that not to be taken personally or for you to feel almost like burned by that of like, what did I do wrong? Or, is it something I said? Like, it's almost like dating. Like I liken some of these things to dating where it's just kind of like, what I thought everything was going so well. What the heck just happened? Um, and really learning how to balance your nervous system. I was and still am, a very type A dietitian, like go, 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 being productive all the time. And business has really forced me to like set boundaries with my work-life balance because I could work all the time because I love it. I'm passionate about it. And that wouldn't be good for my health. That wouldn't be good for my relationships. That wouldn't be good for my business, quite honestly, because the more you work, you know, the more diluted I think your thoughts come from it. You need to take that break for yourself to really nourish yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, so that you can come back into your business even stronger and with new, fresh ideas.
I think what you just said is so helpful whether someone's in a traditional position or an entrepreneurial position or non-conventional position as a dietitian, that idea that I think it's really easy to spend a little bit too much time providing your service and then feeling like a victim, like feeling like, well, gosh, I'm putting all this work in and I'm not getting paid what I wanted to because I'm not asking for the money. And whose fault is that? Like it's this whole vicious cycle about all of us in positions. I think we're predominantly female, and I think there's been this historical precedent of dietitians not making as much money as the value which we provide, and which is why I started dietitiansalaries.com, the anonymous salary surveys, just to show people that actually people are making a lot of money. They may not be talking about it, but just take a look at the results. And there are certainly different ways that we can make money as dietitians. But maybe it does go back to protecting your time and feeling fresh in your job and feeling impactful with the amount of time that you are spending delivering your service. If you're in an entrepreneurial type service, I know myself, like obviously it's a 24 hours, 7 day a week position, this, running a job board and running dietitian salaries, but I can't do that. There's no way I could do that. Sometimes I do, but it's not healthy. And then I'm not providing fresh information. I'm just going back to doing a lot of the details instead of the big, more creative, impactful work. So I think what you've said is really helpful. And you've also just highlighted something. I'm always curious to know what other dietitians are thinking about salaries and how dietitians can make more money. And I think you hit on a few things. Do you have any other advice for dietitians about how, as a profession, we can make more money?
The one thing that's in my mind, which I briefly mentioned, is like, don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to, like, even in my old job, like I asked for a raise and a salary increase, and I showed data of why. So I think that's really, really important. Don't just like ask for more money, like show why you deserve it. And maybe that requires like a year of tracking and like, or being really diligent. Because I find that a lot of people, again, going back to that victim mindset of like, I'm putting so much time in, like what I'm doing things. Because a lot of it maybe it's not about the money. Maybe it's about your burnout. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's having a conversation with your manager of like, here's all the things I'm doing. Like, can this be offboard, or can we rearrange this position? Can we hire someone else? Like, I think that's the other thing I encourage people to do. Is it about financial? Like, is it about providing enough food for your family? Is it about like, living the quality of life you want? Or is it something else? And if it's truly financial, like start collecting data and start collecting that information so that you can present that in a very dignified, informative, and like collaborative way versus just coming in and being like, I want more money, and then they're going to ask you questions and you're not going to have the information.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and I'm always saying this. Of course, we're worth a ton, but you've got to. It's business, right? We are providing a service in exchange for money. That's business. That's how it works. It's not. There's nothing personal about it. It's all business. But you've got to show what it is that you've done. If you here's the service I did, and here are the numbers. Here's the data. This was the change I made. This was the improvement I made. This was the change in biometrics that I made here, or anthropometrics, or whatever it might be, or patient satisfaction. Like there's a whole bunch of different metrics that can be used. Some have a financial outcome. Some have another mission-driven outcome. Maybe it's again patient satisfaction or retention or follow-up visits or whatever it might be. But being able to demonstrate that and go right into that brand new job. What are the metrics that my performance evaluation is going to be graded on, and start tracking, right? Like, so that you can go in with the power to show that you have provided a valuable service in exchange for more money or more paid time off, or, whatever the compensation might be that is equitable and that the business can provide as well. Sometimes you got to think about what the business is. And if it's not the right business, then get it into a different company or start your own business and struggle for a little while. And then you've got a lot of different options. Taylor, you have been like a wealth of information for everybody and such an inspiration. So fun hear all the work that you're putting into this business, and a great sort of template for other dietitians starting out or thinking about starting out, or dietitians who are in traditional jobs and thinking about pivoting, whether they've been in the job for 5 years or 30 years. You know, there's always opportunity for people to evolve and change and feel better about their positions, and just to provide service that people need. So I'm really thankful that you're able to share that with the audience. Anything else you want to share? I'm going to put all of her links and how to find Taylor and all of the work that she's doing, and all of the her website, the podcast, all that. Anything else you want to share with us, Taylor?
I thought of one as you were closing out. So one final thing I will say is don't be scared of niching down too much. That was something that just hit me, that I remember I was very nervous about too throughout the past year, because I completely switched niches, right? From eating disorders to more hormone, birth control, nutrition. And I was very vague with my marketing at first. I was very much like hitting a bunch of different symptoms. And I was also going into gut stuff because, hormones isn't just hormones. It's like you have to have a functioning gut system. You have to have balanced vitamins and minerals, like good blood sugar, like lots of foundations. But those aren't the sexy things people are talking about. They're talking about hormone testing, supplements, birth control, those types of things. So I was really scared to niche down specifically to birth control, even though that's what I was like really passionate about. And as a result of my vaguer marketing, I was getting clients, but they weren't my ideal clients. They weren't the clients that I like loved working with, that I was like really thriving on, that I like at the core of me knew I wanted to help. And so I brought that up just in kind of brainstorming with myself of like what needs to change. And that's when I again consulted my business coach and decided I wanted to really niche down specifically to birth control, helping women transition off and get to the root cause of hormone symptoms naturally. And that really was after getting over the scary hump of like, what if this is too niche? Am I going to am I going to reach the people who I want? Like, I know people need this, but like, are people going to see the value in this? I started attracting like the best clients, like your ideal client who I wanted to work with. And that just really hit home for me. And I think of it as like, if you had a scar on your face, like, would you just go to a PCP, like a general doctor, or would you go to a plastic surgeon? Right. So that really kind of hit the nail on the head for me of like, that makes a lot of sense. People are looking for nowadays, like specialized care. They're over like the generalist, like they're dealing, like people are sicker than ever before. People are having to hop doctor to doctor without answers. Dietitian. We have the power to be very niche and be very specialized. And I think that improves your attractiveness. Doesn't make marketing a little bit harder. At first it does, but I will say once you get that niche, you're talking about the same things, right? You are just showcasing them in different ways. So it's actually made things easier for me too, versus trying to just hit so many different symptoms at once. I'm like just talking about the same thing, just in different ways. So that was the last thing I wanted to say is don't be scared to niche and to make sure you choose something that you really enjoy working with.
That's awesome, because again, that's sort of going back to providing what it is that the consumer wants, right? Like it's all about providing this very unique service, and how you're interpreting your service as a dietitian to what the consumer wants. The consumer wants something very specific. They may have gut issues, right? Like you said, I think that's a brilliant way of putting it and giving someone permission to go ahead and niche down into the area that they can then be an expert at. And like you said, it's going to actually only help your business because both of you are meeting each other's needs, right? Like they're getting exactly what it is that they need, and you're going to be able to provide exactly what it is that they need. So it's like this great connection. So, I love that. That was a good, juicy little pearl. Taylor, thank you so much. This has been really helpful.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. And again, we've got all the information down below for you guys to be able to connect with Taylor. You can follow her, subscribe to her podcast, obviously, and reach out to her if you have any questions about her business as well. So again, thank you so much, Taylor, and bye for now.